like, share, subscribe, and comment.
Hello and welcome. Well, here we are at the West Australian newspaper on Monday the 25th of November for an article entitled Pride Before Politics. Labor throws a pity party after being told to keep its anti-Basel slogans away from the inspiring event. Now, this is a very interesting article. It's on page 16, so that's 7 if you're interested in the numerology. This is a video that is being made for the Facebook page, which dare not mention its name, and that'll be on the screen. The left-wing controllers don't like to include alternative viewpoints, and so that's why we're being careful about that. And so for our American readers, the Labor here is the WA Labor Party, which is the Australian Labor Party, and they are the left-wing political party, which is the equivalent of the Democrats. And so they have the similar value system of the Biden-Harris regime. The characters in this article include the Perth Lord Mayor, Basil Zempilas, who has announced that he is running for the Liberal Party of Western Australia. Now, in Australia, the Liberal Party is the right-wing party, so they're the equivalent of the Republicans, and he's standing in the seat of Churchlands, but as Perth Lord Mayor, the Perth City encompasses the seat of Perth in the state electoral system, and the Perth MP is John Carey. Now, he's also a member of the LGBT community. He's formerly the City of Vincent Mayor before he transferred into WA state politics. And he's obviously on the Democrat side, but he's also the Minister for Housing in the Cook Labor government. The Rainbow Labor, which you will see in this article, obviously they are the left-wing Democrat equivalent group for LGBT people in the Labor Party. This is a very interesting video because it provides an example for our American viewers of what the log cabin could be doing but are not doing. What we can see is that Rainbow Labor has groups in each state, and they are effective at getting LGBT people elected to the parliaments in Australia. So, for example, in Western Australia, there is a Senator Louise Pratt who is in the Australian Parliament, and John Carey is in the state parliament, and there's also a Liberal Party senator in the Australian Parliament as well by the name of Dean Smith. Now, I do want to say something about the way that the Liberal Party has failed the LGBT, HIV and trans communities. The biggest failure that the Liberal Party has done, which is very similar to what's happened with the log cabin, is that the Liberal Party have failed to engage in community development at the grassroots level. And so what the result of this is that within all of the LGBT, HIV and trans groups in Western Australia and perhaps internationally, is they are controlled by left-wing political operatives. And so there's been no contest of ideas. The Liberal Party, the right-hand side, has ceded the ground in all of these community groups to the left. This is pretty important when we consider that the left have undergone a huge shift to the far left extreme, and there's been no force that has been able to challenge or mitigate the harmful effects of the left-wing extremism. And this includes the censorship culture, the bullying culture. People from the left engage in bullying and the culture sweeps it under the carpet and they resign, they move on, they get new jobs. There's no justice or accountability, and that primarily is down to the fact that the right, from a political level, have failed to engage. They've failed. And so the left, when it comes to elections, have this huge critical mass behind them in which to get votes and run campaigns and door knock, etc. And this is perhaps why the Liberal Party crashed out so appallingly at the last election. And so having an incumbent Member of Parliament should have been a great opportunity for the Liberal Party to expand its grassroots base and support grassroots people into joining the Liberal Party. But like the log cabin, they are missing in action. The Liberal Party has really failed HIV positive people because positive people have been talking about the terrible nature of the WA AIDS industry and how it's failed to deliver services for HIV positive people, and they've done nothing when they were in government. There should have been a merger of the bloodborne virus and STI sector so that it would stop the waste and the mismanagement. And so now moving on, Pride WA are the peak party organisers for the Western Australia LGBT, HIV and trans community. So let's have a look. So here we are at the Pride WA website, and what we're interested in doing is we're interested in just doing a quick survey about the board. So meet the team. So Michael Felix, he's a chartered accountant, a CPA, and his background is with the WA AIDS Council. So that's left wing. The AIDS Council is notorious for being left wing in its delivery of services and its positions. In my personal experience, I've been treated very badly by them, and I've had a number of situations where they exhibited Trump derangement syndrome. This person, Catherine Jansen, has a community housing providers. I would hazard a guess that that's left wing too. And there's another chartered accountant. I can't say anything about what her background might be. And this person looks like there's no information on political affiliation. Jane has a career that has spanned globally across military, government and private enterprises. Paul is human resources background. Another human resources professional. So Joey Kessler here is Rainbow Labour. So he's got Rainbow Labour WA links. He's probably a Rainbow Labour member. Chris Gething, he's working in federal politics. Now I did dig into that and I believe that he's working for a Labor Party senator, so left wing. And Lauren Butterley, the CEO, doesn't include any political affiliation in her profile. So we've got two here, links to Rainbow Labour, and then there's the AIDS Council, which is a notorious left-wing organisation, and the others in terms of housing, community housing, that kind of thing, is notorious for being left-wing as well. So that gives you a background as to who the people are in this story. And for our American viewers, this is the kind of thing that the Log Cabin should be doing vis-a-vis getting involved in LGBT, HIV and trans groups such as the Human Rights Organisation. It would mitigate some of the harmful far-left extremism, but it also would help with mitigating against Trump derangement syndrome, and it's very clear from my lived experience that these political organisations are getting involved in groups like this so they can influence the organisation and help get party policy enacted. So, Pride before politics. Labor throws a pity party after being told to keep its anti-Basel slogans away from inspiring event. By Dylan Capehorn. I just want to insert here for our American viewers that it's well known that John Kerry and Basil Zempilas have a bit of a feud going on, and they're a bit like an old married couple fighting at any chance they get. It's obvious that they don't like each other. So Labor's bitter battle against Perth Lord Mayor Basil Zempilas has escalated, with a minister accusing Pride WA of censorship over police removing negative signs from their annual march. In a statement on social media, Perth MP John Kerry lambasted the Pride WA board, claiming police had been asked by the group to tell Labor to remove signs critical of Mr Zempilas and Liberal leader Libby Mettam. Photos accompanying the post show Labor MPs and volunteers holding up signs saying Basil Zempilas shut down a women's shelter. Now that is misleading information. It's certainly an attack against Basil Zempilas, but Basil Zempilas would argue that there are good reasons why they made the decision to not fund the women's shelter in the position that it was in, right next to the Perth nightclub district and right near where all the perpetrators would go to get drunk, and then they'd rock down the road to knock on the door of the women's shelter to find their woman. Is that what they wanted? Or should there have been a better approach, which is what happened, where another organisation funded and managed the shelter? Now on the screen now are some screen grabs of the Minister for Housing, where he's in a video talking about this situation. One of the things he's talking about is criticising the Liberal Party for opposing queer reforms. Now, in terms of relevancy, we have in Australia a left-wing Australian Labor Party government at federal level, and we also have at the state level in Western Australia a Labor government. So this person on the screen is the Minister for Housing in the government. So if the government is opposing queer reforms, then it's the Labor Party that should be responsible for the reforms being squashed. I don't believe we've been losing rights in this state. I believe this is part of the propaganda that was associated with this Pride event. Last night, Pride WA censored the WA Labor / Rainbow Labor as part of the Pride Parade, instructing us to remove signage which criticised the WA Liberals on their anti-LGBTQAI+ commitments and for closing a women's shelter, Mr Kerry said. Pride marches are built on a history of political activism and protest, freedom of expression and advancing the rights of LGBTQAI+ community. Now, I would just like to insert in here that Pride WA is like a lot of other Western Australian organisations. They might talk about all of these fine words, but they always have had a history of censoring free speech. And for example, this year Mother Greta allegedly went to the Pride with a proposal for a anti-Trump float which involved penises, and allegedly Pride said that Mother Greta couldn't have that float. Now, I will note that that float idea was submitted to Pride without any consultation with the rest of the OPI Perth members. Sister Slash and I submitted a whole list of different options for a theme that would be in keeping with the event, and Mother Greta rejected those out of hand. And it wasn't just myself, but a number of other sisters who refused to be involved because of the inappropriate theme. But what it says is that this idea that Pride has only censored the Labor Party, well, that's not correct. This is in keeping with their policy of making sure that negative political campaigns are not included in the parade. The big concern here is that the City of Perth is a sponsor of Pride WA, and that means that the City of Perth has committed $1.03 million towards Pride WA Inc.'s Pride Fest celebrations between 2004 and 2026 through its major events and festivals sponsorship program. The intersection of community events with politics can have long-term repercussions, especially when organisations like Pride WA, with board members from politically aligned groups, navigate these waters. Anticipating potential political fallout and managing it wisely is crucial for the sustainability of such events. Pride are being put in a very difficult position, and given that they have Rainbow Labor people on the board, they should have understood that. They should have, when they put in their application to be afloat, they should have had the discussion then. And this is why I think that this story might be a bit interesting in terms of it might be more propaganda and beat up than it is a legitimate issue. So police were approached and informed by Pride WA that WA Labor was breaching the agreed conditions of the march participation, despite no rules prescribing any limit on political messaging to enter the parade. But that's what it is. They always keep things vague in Western Australia, so the left-wing political operatives are able to twist and turn and justify and wiggle and all the rest of it, so that things change, and one rule for them and one rule for him and one rule for her, for example. So Labor's signs were also used at a Pride WA community fair last weekend, with Mr Carey defending the signage. So this is what I'm saying. They knew what the messaging would be, so why didn't Pride have a conversation with their two Rainbow Labor ALP types on the board and get them to go and do it privately to resolve the issue for the parade, unless this is what they wanted. So Pride WA's parade rules allow organisations to represent themselves, but are to refrain from advertising specific campaigns, including political messages. Mr Carey also targeted Pride WA's acceptance of sponsorship from the City of Perth that enables political interference and censorship of messages. The real reason behind the censorship became clear when a Pride WA leader told a member of WA Labor they feared losing City of Perth funding, Mr Carey said. But Pride WA chairperson Michael Felix said the decision had not been influenced by sponsors and the group had become caught up in an ongoing political controversy not of their making. Pride WA appears to have been caught in the middle of an ongoing political controversy that existed before the commencement of Pride Fest and was not of our making. This distracts from our core message of inclusivity, togetherness and a safe environment, he said. Some of our volunteers were made to feel unsafe at the parade and this is deeply concerning. I'm going to hazard a guess that this is part of the entertainment for the story because I don't believe, given that the Labor Party has such strong links to Pride WA and the community, I don't believe that anyone was really unsafe per se. Just because someone's getting into their feelings doesn't mean it's really unsafe. I think this is a left-wing neo-Marxist, cultural Marxist language which is designed to make people feel emotionally blackmailed about the consequences of this situation. This warrants further consideration at the appropriate time. Operational decisions made by Pride WA during the parade are not influenced by the views of our partners or sponsors and are made purely on the grounds of public safety and creating a safe environment. Mr Zemplis pictured, so this is his little face here, that's him there, boom, back we go, to his feet. He says, Mr Carey was unravelling. This is a pathetic attempt from a failed minister to divert attention away from his shocking record of delivery, he said. Minister Carey should be worrying about housing and homelessness, not politicising community events. Mr Carey's post came just days after the West revealed the housing minister was about to take on the role of chief attack dog against Mr Zemplis ahead of the election. Labor is gearing up its attacks against Mr Zemplis, a Seven West Media employee, so they're the people that own this newspaper for our American viewers, who is linked to party leadership speculation in the Liberal Party against Miss Metham. They do like to undermine Libby Metham every chance they get. The newspaper itself has a history of supporting the Labor Party. Like all media does in the world, they're always seemingly to be the fake news left news. So was this pity party a confection for the media? Did they all get together and confect a message for the newspaper? When it comes to this whole story about the women's refuge, the West Australian newspaper talks about 13,000 women in Western Australia needing housing to help them flee domestic violence. Plus you've got men who are subject to domestic violence, and we know from our previous stats that 40% of women bash their husbands, and there's a huge rate of domestic violence in the bisexual and gay male communities. I use that term community loosely, but the meth crisis is fueling a crisis of domestic violence. They've known about this for years, and so homelessness is also caused by meth, and so the West Australian newspaper has already previously said that the WA Labor Party didn't do very much at all when it came to housing in their first term, and so it seems to me that this kind of electioneering is not focusing on results-driven policies. I would much prefer to see the WA Labor government demonstrating how many houses they're building, how many shelters they're going to be building, how many places will be available for men that are victims of domestic violence. The problem with ideology is that what you tend to get is a hodgepodge of some getting helped and some not getting helped because of ideology. In a first world nation like Western Australia is part of, then there shouldn't be any reason for male victims of domestic violence, whether they're gay, straight or bi or trans, to be missing out on assistance. And politicising domestic violence and homelessness and all of that and trivialising it is not appropriate. And this on page 16 is targeting the heterosexual community who won't have all of these details when they're reading this, and it's certainly probably not going to be read by very many LGBT, HIV and trans people as well. So this is why they're able to craft it in such a way that people from the community who might recognise the nuances won't see it. The actions of Pride WA and Rainbow Labour during the recent parade have potentially jeopardised future funding by allowing the event to become a political battleground. By engaging in political disputes such as the censorship accusations against the City of Perth's Lord Mayor and the controversial use of the women's shelter issue, they have risked alienating major sponsors like the City of Perth. This incident reflects poorly on Pride WA's board, including members from Rainbow Labour, who might have prioritised political jabs over the financial stability and broad community support needed to sustain Pride events. Such manoeuvres could lead to a significant loss of funding and public trust, threatening the future of Pride celebrations in Perth. As I said, the log cabin in America have been bloody useless. The Liberal Party, in terms of their assistance for the LGBT, HIV and trans community in Australia, have been bloody useless as well. This is the problem. The right wing have allowed the left wing to take over community groups, and this, if you look at the American LGBT groups, you'll see it has the same kind of left-wing bias that is in Western Australia. So this is a good example of why the log cabin need to lift their game. They should by now have had groups set up in every state, and they should be helping candidates, especially LGBT, HIV and trans candidates, to be elected at local, state and federal level. But it seems to me that they don't do very much at all. In fact, during the American campaign, I saw nothing from them apart from when the First Lady, Melania Trump, graciously appeared in one of their promos. Mrs. Trump has a long history of supporting LGBT rights through the log cabin, and she is to be commended for that. Alright, that's it. I hope you enjoy this video and the little pity party. I think it's a big storm in a teacup, and I think that Mr. Carey is probably feeling the pinch in his Perth electorate. There's been a lot of changes to the demographics, and I think a lot of people know that the housing situation has not been addressed, and I think there's an edge of desperation to Labor's policies on housing, and perhaps if Labor are returned, they might be returned with a few less underachievers. So please like, share, subscribe, go to the Facebook page on the screen, and follow and like and share that. We appreciate everyone who watches our videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Well, welcome to the channel. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment.